Welcome back to Car Subs. My ride this week, the all-new 2022 Nissan Pathfinder. Long overdue for a redesign. Like most Nissan products, they take their sweet time. This Pathfinder has been on the earth as long as I have, since 1985. This is just the 5th generation. So it was long overdue, to say the least. New design looks great though. Nissan's kind of had this theme with their SUVs. The Rogue looks just like this, just a little bit smaller, which I think the Rogue is actually the size that the Pathfinder used to be, because like me in 1985, I was a lot smaller, and so was the Pathfinder. In fact, it's gotten a lot bigger. I'm gonna show you just how big it's gotten since. Now, the first thing I notice is how wide this thing is. It feels like a really big truck, which it is. So for reference, the first four-door Pathfinder came out in 1989. It was 66.5 inches wide. So I'm gonna measure this one. We'll see how wide we are. We'll go tire to tire. That is just between 77 and 78. Not sure if you can see that. 66 to 78 is a full foot. It is 1 foot wider than the car was 30 years ago. And if you think it was a lot wider, it's also a whole lot longer. Now, I won't bore you with the entire distance from the front to the back with a tape measure. I looked it up. 172 was the length of the 89 Pathfinder four-door, and this is 198. So you got to take 26 inches off. We'll do it from the back. I'll go from the bumper to here, essentially to the back of this wheel well. So imagine this car, if you lop this entire part off, so go here over, that's how big the original Pathfinder was. It makes a huge difference. So what do you get with all that newfound extra space? Well, like many SUVs in this segment, you get a third row seat. So you can add 2 extra people to the back for a total of 7. But those 2 people better be pretty flexible, because not an easy chore to get back here. But once you are here, there is lots of leg room. My knees aren't even touching the seats in front of me, and tons of headroom. To me personally though, I'd rather be able to seat 5 comfortably, save the weight, save the space, and have a much bigger cargo area. I wish Nissan, and the other manufacturers for that matter, would make the third row seat a no charge option. So you can let the customer decide, do they want the seat, do they not want the seat? Some exterior design cues to note. Nissan couldn't resist putting a giant piece of chrome across it. It's kind of their signature, but it is more subtle than before. Blacked out grille, and there's also a new Nissan logo. They've been putting this on all their models. Pretty much the same, they just added some white to it. It looks pretty good and a lot more modern. Every trim level does come with LED headlights out front, and your standard rims are 18s. Blacked out, no more chrome these days. And you'll see that Nissan logo again in the center. On the side, you do get a little Pathfinder logo in case you forgot what you were driving. And one-touch system. As long as your key fob is nearby, the door will open on the driver's side front and the passenger side front, not on the rear doors, so your kids aren't messing with the doors. Up top, one thing I noticed that's missing that is strange is there's no roof rails. I thought if this was trying to be more truck-like, they would have added some of those. I went to the website to try to add them, and I didn't even see it as an option, which I thought was interesting. But going out back, you'll see Nissan's done what every other manufacturer's done now too, is they put their name in big, boldy, chunky, spread out letters. I think Porsche started doing this like 10 years ago. And then you saw Dodge, Ford, Lincoln, everyone hop onto the trend. It's just kind of what the automakers do. But I imagine 10 years from now, we could be seeing Pathfinders with missing letters, and it just looks bad. One thing to note is if you're going with the base model, there is an option to get a tow hitch, but the base model will only tow 3,500 pounds. And if you jump it up to the next level, even though they all have the same engine, any level above the base level, you can actually tow 6,000 pounds. That's a huge difference, but if you do want a tow hitch, it's about $700 dealer installed. Under the hood is nothing new here. Nissan has used this engine forever. In fact, it's the exact same engine from the previous generation Pathfinder, same specs and everything. 284 horsepower, 259 pound-feet of torque. If you don't like this engine, too bad. Nissan says that's all you get. Every trim level has this engine, but it's pretty nice. It gets this heavy car 0 to 60 in the all-wheel drive version, which this is 6.6 seconds. Not too shabby. Now, one important distinction from the previous generation is that one had a CVT transmission. I have a lot of thoughts on CVTs. They do drive pretty smooth, but overall, they're pretty terrible and very unreliable. I'm starting to see automakers actually get off the CVT bandwagon, which is nice. Nissan developed an all-new 9-speed transmission for this that is silky smooth. That is, if you could figure out how to get it into gear. And here's what I mean by that. Let me start the engine first of all. This is the shifter. Every car has weird shift gears now. No one has a normal shift gear on any car that's like above $30,000. So this is Nissan's version. It's like a joystick essentially. You can see it's in park right now, which is confusing because there's another P right there, which I'll show you how to use that. If you want to shift it in to gear, you can kind of move it that way. Okay, there we go. It's in neutral. As you saw, if you go down, that'll get you into drive. And let's say you want to go to reverse, right? Well, okay, neutral. Then next up should be reverse. No, that's not how you do it. You actually got to push this side button down here to get it into reverse. And then you're in reverse. Don't need to touch it if you want to go back all the way to drive, or kind of just caress it into neutral, maybe. There we go, neutral. And when you're done, even though the P is there, you want to hit this P to park it. Now we're in park. The utilitarian design continues inside. You got some nice kind of trucky-like features, storage in the doors. You got your speaker, but there are some nicer materials up here too. These are more soft touch materials. This is really soft as well. You have your window lock button, windows, mirror controls, and door locks at the top. Stepping inside, but before we do that, this is one thing that you don't get on the base model: power seats anywhere. Not even the driver's seat. You think for 37 grand, I could get a power seat, but not the case here. These seats also, with my back, they don't like them. They're really, really hard down here. It's kind of pressing into your back, and there's not much to adjust. You don't even get a lumbar adjustment on the base model. Okay, now let's step inside. Pretty nice interior design. As you can tell, base models don't get a lot of options, a lot of blank buttons here. All you get is instrument illumination. The soft touch materials that were on the door continue through the dash on the front part at least, extend all the way across. And on the top, a little bit harder, but still a nice surface. It does not have a leather steering wheel. I'm pretty sure the higher models do, but I really like this steering wheel. It's got the old school finger kind of holes in it. I don't know what you call those, if you remember those. Not many steering wheels have these anymore, but it fits your hand nicely. It's got a nice thumb groove, and this I really like too, because I like to put my hand on the bottom of the wheel. And a lot of cars that have these kind of tri-spoke wheels, they'll block this off, but Nissan left it open, so I can still slide my hand in there pretty nice. This does have manual shifting mode, which I find completely useless in cars like this, but if you enjoy that, it is on here. You have volume buttons, you have skip track, which are your essentials, and you have your cruise control, your voice commands, and phone buttons. Going here, you have your auto headlights, or you can have them regular. And at the tip here is your auto brights. It's kind of nice, an easy way to turn it off or on. Some cars just automatically leave it on. I live in the city, so the auto brights can get confused a lot, so it's nice to have that option to just turn it off right away. And the other thing I will say too, the turn signals are a little bit hard to use. It's I know it doesn't come through on video, but they're a little bit hard to push. But if you live in Los Angeles like me, you're probably not even using them anyways. No one does here. Over here you got windshield wipers for the front and the rear ones out here. Your center screen has some nice features. There are still analog gauges, analog tach, temperature, fuel gauge, and speedometer, of course. But in the center, you will get a digital readout for your speed too. Up top, you got time, temperature, various warning white lights above those, and odometer, what gear you're in right now, park obviously, and miles until empty. You can scroll through various menus on your steering wheel. There are lots of options here. Nothing too wild. You got tire pressure monitoring, you got your music, you have blind spot monitoring, safety controls that you can watch, various settings of all kinds that you would expect in cars of today. And there's also one that leaves it blank, so you can kind of not be distracted by all that, which would be handy at night. It kind of reminds me of the old Saabs back in the day. They used to have like a night mode where you could just turn everything off except for your speed and your essentials. So that one's kind of nice. Other controls like the wipers and things, when you activate them on the stock, it'll come up in this driver control system as well. One of the Pathfinder's biggest competitors is the Ford Explorer, where you will get a wheel in the center console to select different drive modes. There happens to be 7 different modes on the Ford Explorer. And look what we have here. A button in the center console of the Nissan Pathfinder that looks eerily similar to the Explorer's, and you guessed it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drive modes. Weird. Let's go through them quick. First of all, you have sand, and then you have mud and rut, snow. Auto is what the car starts with every time. Eco to save you a little bit of gas mileage. Sport mode, of course. And if you happen to be towing, there is a tow mode as well. If you push the center button, you will engage hill descent control also. Standard in the S trim level is an 8-inch infotainment system. It is all touchscreen with some appreciated knobs as well. Volume, tune, and some options below. If you want to bump this up, the next trim level offers you a 9-inch screen. But I think most people will tell you 8 inches is enough. It has pretty much everything you could need. You know, AM, FM, XM, Bluetooth. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you do have to plug it in. So one argument for upping the trim level is that 9-inch screen will give you wireless CarPlay. You can instantly access items here. One reminder. Delete your cell phones when you bring back your rental car. Camila, Chamby, Salvador, Amber, I'm talking to you. Rude. Anyways, some phone buttons here. Audio skip tracks, which you can also access on the steering wheel. This button, I thought with a lot of cars now you can access your rear view camera instantly. Well, not the case here. All you get is the camera settings, which is kind of annoying. Because sometimes it's nice just to see, you know, who's behind you without having to actually put it in reverse. But all that does is take you to the camera settings. Below, you got your air vents, hazard lights, and engine start stop button, and then your climate control. Pretty standard system here. Dual zone, each driver side and passenger can change their own side. And you also have controls for the back seat, which you can turn off or on. You can turn the actual heating system for the entire rear on or off, or you can also let them control it by activating that. But, you know, if you have kids that want to blast the heat or mess with the AC and annoy you, you can also lock them out of being able to access that as well. Underneath that, you have some nice storage. You have your standard 12-volt cigarette lighter. You have a USB-C and a standard USB cable too. Something very simple but cool I found on here. You know, it's a visor. It's large, which is nice. Has the flip up with a light. Hello, but that's not it. Look at this. It says sliding visor. I was like, what does that mean? Does it slide? Does this do something? No. You take it off the hook, and it'll slide that way, wherever the sun is. It's very handy. It'll go all the way to the edge of the door. Cool feature. One other simple but nice feature of the car, I mean, unless someone's following you, is that it will actually light up for you. You just walk up to it. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to touch the fob. It's kind of nice. I should also mention that rear seat passengers are not treated as luxuriously as the front seat passengers because, like mini models, they cheap out on the back stuff. Much, much harder. Listen to that and then go to the front. Big difference. And one issue I saw that if you want to fold down the second seat so people can get to the back like I just did, and then you want to put it back up, gotta grab that. And then, oh wait, the headrests actually don't fold down. A lot of cars will let this headrest go down so you can lift this up and not interfere with the front seat. But since this front seat is in that position, I gotta go back around. And remember, no power seats here, so you gotta manually grab that. I'm gonna have to do it with my other hand. Move the seat up. And then we can take this, a little bit hard with the camera, and then fold it up. So on the base model, you don't get a ton of power features, and that unfortunately includes the lift gate as well. But it's not a huge deal because as long as you're close, you're juggling bags, you can sense the key fob, so it knows you're there. It'll unlock it for you. But here's the problem. You go to lift it up, and it doesn't want to lift up. I don't know if this is all models. This is like a brand new one, and the struts are not very good. The struts are really stiff. This actually goes up way up here, but you gotta force it in. But once it's up, okay, bags in. And you can see the cargo area is not that big. So if you got 7 people, they're probably bringing 7 things, especially kids. And when I sit in here, I'm sitting on the back of the cargo area. That third seat really impedes on your cargo space. Here's one thing I noticed. If you rest your knee against the door and you're on a bumpy road maybe and it moves like this, listen. The plastic trim likes to squeak. Nissan claims 0 to 60 in the 2022 Pathfinder in all-wheel drive takes 6.6 seconds. Let's see if we can match that. I'm gonna put it into sport mode. Here we go. The original plan was to take the Pathfinder off-road so I could show you some of its skills, but I figured not too many people are gonna be taking that truly off-road. This is about the most off-road you're gonna get. This is cypress trees, which are very beautiful, but they cause havoc on the road. These things are pretty wild. This is one of the worst roads I've seen with it. Let's put it in 4-wheel drive and see what the Pathfinder does. I put the car into mud rut mode. I think that's the best option for these. Those would definitely qualify as ruts. Let's see what happens here. Ooh, little wheel slip there. True urban off-roading at its best. It's at least the toughest stuff we're gonna find in Los Angeles. Ooh, that's a big one. But the Pathfinder handles it well. Some final thoughts on the Pathfinder. It's a really good car. You should have it on your list if you're looking for something in this size range. And when I say this size range, I mean it's huge. I can't stress that enough. It's very wide. It's very long. So ask yourself, do you need all that extra space? Do you need the third row? How often are you realistically going to have 7 people in your vehicle? If the answer is never or once a year, maybe look at getting something a little bit smaller. If you like the styling of the Pathfinder, the Nissan Rogue was just recently redesigned and it looks exactly the same. It's just a little bit smaller. So maybe that's a better option for you. It's probably also going to get you better gas mileage. Nissan claims EPA estimate is 21 in the city, 27 on the highway, which isn't fantastic, but I didn't even achieve that. I've been driving mostly in the city and I'm getting about 19 or 20 miles to the gallon, which is pretty terrible, especially if you live in California and you have our gas prices. Some other competitors to look into if you do need something this big, I would say the Kia Telluride and the Hyundai Palisades are always top of the list. Everyone seems to really like those and the interiors are fantastic. Maybe the Mazda CX-90 that just came out. I have a CX-5 personally as my daily driver and that car is awesome. It's one of the best cars I've ever had as a daily. and the new Jeep Grand Cherokee. I was really impressed with those as well. And that's kind of best of both worlds. If you don't need all that size, you can get the Grand Cherokee with 2 rows still, or they have a new extended wheelbase version with 3 rows. Finally, very comparable, and I think Nissan did it on purpose, would be the Ford Explorer. I've driven a couple of those, the previous generation and the current generation. It is a nice car, and I think that it's almost exactly the same as the Pathfinder. So if you're cross-shopping both, I would check that out as well. I did like the engine in the Ford a little bit better. It just felt a little peppier, but this car is by no means slow, as you saw in the video. But that's it for this review. If you enjoyed it, I would appreciate it if you like, share, and comment on Car Snubs. Or if you have a car that you want me to test drive and you're in the Southern California area, just shoot me an email. It's info, I-N-F-O, at carsnubs.com. I'll see you next time.